Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, the internet, and the like, and welcome back to Team Fortress 2. Today, we're going to be playing Engineer on Dust Bowl. Yes, I know, it's more Dust Bowl. I don't know what's come over me lately, but I've kind of had this sort of addiction to Dust Bowl. I've probably been inhaling a little bit too much of the dust, and I do apologize for this. I'm going to try and stray away from this addiction in the future, and you'll probably see a bit less in the way of Dust Bowl. But that's not really what we're going to be talking about in this video. What we are going to be talking about is the Short Circuit, which is the weapon I'm using in my secondary slot, a secondary weapon for the Engineer that was added way back when in the Deus Ex update. And if you don't recall what this Short Circuit was like way back when, I'll tell you. It probably only had about 10 shots, maybe possibly 8. It draws from your metal capacity, and a lot of people said you should just play Pyro. It's so much better to play Pyro, not only because you can reflect the projectiles from whence they came, but also because you can extinguish fires. The Short Circuit, in my opinion, is a lot better nowadays, one, because of the buff it received last year, and two, it pretty much acts as a miniature Pyro if a Pyro is not willing to guard your nest. So let's go over the basics of what the Short Circuit is like nowadays. One, it only costs 5 metal per shot, and since it draws from your metal supply, at maximum ammo you can fire it 40 times, which is a pretty big clip for a weapon. And the second thing is, it costs only 15 metal to destroy a projectile. And that is just terrific, because as long as you have a dispenser that you can at least draw metal from, you're pretty much going to have a lot of ammo from this thing. True, it might be best that you stick around an ammo kit, even one that's small as like a 40 ammo kit, but apart from that, using the Short Circuit is just a really good idea. In a sense, and this is kind of where things get situational, because right here, you can probably tell already that I am not using a wrench. I'm using the gunslinger, and I'm denying this enemy demo man from entering our building and destroying that sentry gun. That is one great thing about the Short Circuit, is that you can spam it just about endlessly. And by endlessly, I mean until you run out of ammo, but the point being, you can spam this weapon, and as long as a soldier or a demo man is firing a projectile towards you, it's pretty much never going to hit you. In fact, I think the weapon fires a lot faster than an enemy can fire their weapon to actually deal damage. This is a perfect counter to Demo Man because, as you can see, I'm deleting a couple of these grenades, trying to keep the grenades away from the nest so that way we don't have to worry about the nest going down. The interesting thing about this gameplay is that the other engineer who I'm assisting was actually using the Short Circuit as well. But the thing that I like about using the Short Circuit is I prefer to play Assist Engineer, which is why I'm using the Gunslinger. And yes, you did see me lay down a mini-sentry right there. What of it? It's not like I'm going to go out and retreat from this nest because, one, I just destroyed that critical rocket. Had I not been there to destroy that critical rocket, then 2 or 3 people probably would have died. And two, as long as I just stand around here and guard this nest, I can just let my mini-sentry do the work, because a lot of people just don't seem to know that that mini-sentry can be easily destroyed. In fact, I don't think it really gets destroyed for a couple minutes now, which is kind of surprising, because it's in an area where you could just spam a couple shots over and then boom, it'll be done and over with. But there you can see just destroying, well, it's not destroying, deleting more projectiles with the Short Circuit. And I think this is where it's at. The one big downside about, if you can even consider this a downside, about using the Short Circuit is that you do not get points for deleting projectiles. And on the outside, that might be a little bit disappointing to some people, because it really does feel like you're doing a lot of work when you just stand here deleting these projectiles over and over again. If I'm honest though, I think it's the thought that counts, because sometimes, as long as the other engineer just says thanks on the occasion, I think you should feel rewarded. It's not like you're wasting your time or anything. In fact, if you did want to, you could play as Pyro, and whether or not that's better in some cases is fairly debatable. I think the thing about playing Pyro, the differences between going as the Pyromaniac or running around going, I can destroy projectiles with the Short Circuit. Sorry, delete. I keep saying destroy, I mean delete. The main difference here being that the Pyro does have his limitations when it comes to air blasting. Obviously, you cannot destroy multiple projectiles at a time with the air blast. You can reflect some of them, but not all of them. The best thing about the short circuit is that with about 40 metal in reserve, and you see just multiple projectiles heading towards you, you could quite potentially delete them all and then not have to worry about a thing. You could keep constantly doing this without having a care in the world. And that is pretty awesome. You have to admit, just not having to worry about how many projectiles you delete or how much metal you have, as long as you keep a constant supply at hand, then you're pretty much going to be the ultimate assistant engineer of all time. And this is one thing that I kind of want to cover too, is about sticky bombs. For one thing, the short circuit, as per usual, it deletes projectiles at the cost of 15 metal. If you see 8 sticky bombs, 8 times 15, god, I suck at math right now, I honestly can't think of that off the top of my head. Just imagine that it draws a lot of metal out of your reserve. That's pretty much the one thing you need to keep in mind, is that you can destroy a full nest of sticky bombs with the short circuit, but it is going to cost you, and if you don't have enough metal, then I don't think all the projectiles will be deleted. I honestly cannot recall if that's the situation at hand, because it's not very often I run into a full nest of sticky bombs, and I decide I have to destroy all of them. But a lot of people seem to forget, too, that you can destroy sticky bombs. It doesn't matter if you're deleting them with a short circuit, or if you're just destroying them with a gun. You can destroy sticky bombs. Please do this. I've known this since I started playing TF2 a couple years ago, and it can be quite beneficial, especially if you're trying to guard a sentry nest. And again, this is probably where the short circuit has its biggest strength. So here you can see me deleting more grenades out of existence, and that demo man is probably going to have to reconsider his decisions in life. However, that sentry gun, I obviously cannot attack with the short circuit, because it's a sentry gun. What can you do against sentry guns? Not very much. All I really have is a shotgun to work with, and to be honest, a shotgun is not the best thing you could be using at close range, especially considering the sentry gun has higher damage per second. And I'm kind of rambling right now, I do realize this. I'm having a difficult time speaking more on positive things about the short circuit. I've covered a lot of the good things about this weapon. I was gonna call it a gun, but it's sort of like a gun. I mean, it's a little electrical gun. It goes pew pew, and you delete projectiles with it. I really wish I could stop saying destroy projectiles, because it's a lot more like you're deleting the projectiles. Now, I do realize this is kind of important to cover too, so I'm glad I actually thought of this right now. It's about aiming with the short circuit. You might be a little bit concerned about how you aim with this weapon, and specifically where you aim to make sure you destroy the projectile. If you can move your mouse around and aim a gun, just any gun in Team Fortress 2, you can use the short circuit. It's very simple. All you have to do is just look in the general direction of where the projectile is coming from, and chances are it will be deleted on sight. There's not much you have to do. You have a full metal capacity of 200. You can fire the thing 40 times. You could spam it if you really want to, but I really wouldn't advise it unless there are like a giant legion of soldiers, essentially. A couple of times in this gameplay, I do end up spamming the short circuit, and that's because I don't really have too much general experience with using it. For the most part, I just kind of spam it and hope I win, hope I don't die. So I'm a little bit panicky when it comes to that sort of circumstance. But as long as you have a lot of metal and dispensers nearby to refuel from, then it shouldn't become much of a worry. And this being Dust Bowl, this is the ultimate fortification right here. One good example, I'm protecting this engineer's sentry gun by deleting these projectiles, as they're pretty much shot from over a very good vantage point. A lot of demo men don't really use that vantage point to destroy sentry guns, which is kind of interesting, so I'm glad I was there to deal with that. Now, one good thing about the short circuit too, before this video closes off, is that if you're worried, if you're in a hefty situation where a soldier's right next to you, use the short circuit and just keep spamming it to get away. You don't want to be hanging around a soldier when you're playing engineer in general. If you stay too close, you're gonna get popped like a cherry, essentially. You just need to keep away, and the short circuit is very good in ensuring your safety, so that way you can escape from a very bad situation. And that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. So the short circuit is great in conclusion, and I would highly recommend you play Assist Engineer with it, even if you don't top score. So thank you guys very much for watching, have a great day or evening, and I guess I will see you in the next video.